Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel and this new series that I call Journey to Med, where I am trying my best and my very hardest to help prospective medical applicants achieve their dreams and their goals by getting into medical school. So a few days ago, I actually posted this post on Instagram where I'm talking to you and I'm sharing with you some of the most popular and some of the most common patterns for abstract reasoning. And this actually gave me the idea that I should probably make a whole YouTube video about abstract reasoning and how I actually got 800 out of 900 in the UCAT Abstract Reasoning section. And so in this post, I also talked to you and explained to you my only piece of advice that I have and the only kind of technique that I use to get this score, which is the fact that I kept a list of all of the different patterns that I ever encountered while I was actually practicing my UCAT exam. So any pattern that I encountered while doing practice questions or mocks, afterwards I would go through the corrections and then write exactly what the pattern was. And in that post on Instagram, I tell you that I had not enough space to actually write down all of the patterns that I encountered because one, it would be too long, and two, it would be too specific. And I was not joking. When I tell you guys that I actually have a really, really long list of patterns, I'm not joking. Like, this is the first page, second page, then there's this whole page behind here. This whole page behind here. And then all of these little post-it notes, all filled with UCAT abstract reasoning patterns. And that's actually really one of the only techniques that really helped me for abstract reasoning, because it meant that I always had something to reread to like refresh my memory on what kinds of patterns can fall on exam day. But it also meant that when I was struggling with a pattern during the exam or during my mock exams, it meant that I had kind of like a checklist of like, okay, is it this pattern? Is it this pattern? Is it this one? Can it be this one? Does it have aspects of this one? Which would actually really help me to find out what the pattern was, and in the end kind of help me become a bit more, like, help me become quicker with abstract reasoning. And I think was really what was the game changer for me, and that's what helped me get 800 out of 900. So today I also figured that it would be a good idea for me to actually go through a list of questions on the question bank of the UCAT to actually explain to you guys how I actually approach the questions, how I answer them, what is my thinking process, in the hope that it could actually help you and give you kind of maybe some advice or some tips or kind of a method to follow when you're actually approaching abstract reasoning questions. Hi guys, sorry for the quick interruption. I'm just currently editing the video that you're seeing right now, and I'm feeling that it's going to be a bit too long, so I'm just going to cut it into two parts. So the first part that you're seeing right now, and then I'm going to publish the second part on Wednesday, so just stay tuned for that if you want to see and understand a bit more how to approach abstract reasoning questions. And yeah, I'm done with the interruption. Let's just get back to the video. So the first thing here on this question is the fact that this is the first question type in abstract reasoning. It's a set A, set B question. And usually what I do when I approach these questions is the first thing that I do is that I do not look at the question. That's the first thing. Like, no, never. I never look at the question first. What I would always do is look at the patterns and try to find the patterns first. That's really important because then it will allow you to be very quick, because once you have the pattern, you just have to answer the questions and it's way quicker to do this way. And so how do I find the pattern? So I have a few different approaches. Either I would look at only the boxes in set A or just the boxes in set B, or then I might also compare between set A and set B. So, for instance, in this pattern, the approach that I would have used and my kind of thinking process would have been, okay, the first thing that I realized is that there's a black dot there's a black dot, and this black dot appears both in set A and also in set B. So it means that it's not necessarily something that's going to distinguish both of these sets. It's something that might actually be something similar between both of these sets. Then what I realized is that the black dot is also positioned always above the diagonal lines of the other little shapes. And that's the same thing for set A and set B. So, okay, both of the black dots are not a distinguishing factor between set A and set B. Then I realized as well that there's always in set A and in set B the same shape, this kind of squarish shape with a line in the middle, and then opposing to that a white dot. And this shape is always the same in set A and set B, and there's always 5 of them in diagonal. So again, that's not something that's going to distinguish both of them. It's actually something that's common between both of these sets. And then what I'm realizing is that each time there's a black dot, I'm seeing that the next shape after that actually changed orientation and moved, like changed and twisted and changed orientation. And that happens both for set A and set B. You see here there's a black dot, the orientation changed. Here there's a black dot, the orientation changed. So that's a first thing. That's a, something to realize. And then if I take, at this point, what I would do is that I would be, okay, so now what's is actually different between both of these sets? What is actually the distinguishing factor? And what I would do is that I would take this set here, and this shape, like this box here, and this box here. And why? Because here you're starting with the initial shape in this orientation, with the little white dot that's facing upwards, and you're starting with this box here and this with the same shape with the same orientation. So then it's going to be very easy for us to distinguish what happens when the black dot appears. So here, when the black dot appears, we realize that again, it changes orientation and it moves 90 degrees, but to the right. It moves 90 degrees to the right. So here it was here. Then the black dot, it moves, changes orientation 90 degrees to the right. Whereas here, once there's the black dot, yes, you can see that after the black dot, the shape here has changed orientation. But it actually changed orientation 90 degrees, also the same, but this time to the left. And that is the pattern. In set A, each time that there's a black dot, the orientation of the shape will change, will move, and will rotate 90 degrees to the right. And in set B, it will be 90 degrees to the left. So now that we actually have the pattern, we're going to be able to see and answer these questions, because now we have the pattern. So if we look at this shape here, we can see that there's 3 shapes in the same orientation, the black dot, and then it changes orientation. It moves to the left 90 degrees. So that would be set B. However, there's this black dot again, and normally when there's another black dot, it would mean that it would have to change orientation again. So again, it would have to move from where it was, so here, and then move 90 degrees again to the left. However, here, this shape has not changed orientation, so it will be neither. Then here, we have 2 shapes with this orientation, then a black dot, which means that it has to change orientation 90 degrees, and it moves to the left. So it should be set B. However, don't be too quick to decide. You realize here that this shape actually, from here to here, the orientation change has been of 180 degrees and not 90 degrees. If it was 90 degrees, it would have been like this little one here. It would have to look like this one. However, it's not the same. This one and this one are not the same. And so it moved too much. It turned too much, 90 degrees extra. So this would have to be also neither. Then in this one, we have 3 shapes with the same orientation, a black dot, and again, this one moved too much. It moved 180 degrees to the left, so it's neither. It doesn't fit in either set A or set B. Then for this one, we would have 2 shapes of the same orientation, a black dot, and then a change of orientation to the left, so that's set B, and you can see that it's 90 degrees. So that corresponds very well to set B. And then there's another black dot, so it would have to correspond to another orientation change, and this time it orientates again 90 degrees to the left, so it continues the correct pattern, which is a pattern that corresponds to set B. So again, set B. Then I think that's the last one of this set. We have this shape, a black dot, 90 degrees orientation change this way to the left. So that is set B. And then here, if we just check it again, a black dot, again an orientation change to the left again. and 90 degrees. So again, set B. So that corresponds completely to set B. Now we have a different type of question, which is not a set A, set B question. It's a sequence question, which is the fact that all of these boxes actually you move from one box to the other. Something happens within each box, and it's a sequence. And then in the question, you would have to find out what's the next box in the sequence. So if we look at this, usually what I look at is that I would try to just focus on one thing first. So the first thing that I'm going to focus on here is that I'm going to focus on the colors. So let's just follow the colors and look at it in a clockwise motion, so this way. So I'm starting with white, black, gray. Then this one, white, black, gray. Then this one, white, black, gray, white, black, gray. So the colors always follow the same order. It's always going to be white, black, and gray. Like a gray, I mean lined. I'm just gonna call it gray, but okay. So now let's just see in these question options which ones we can eliminate. Because usually when I'm doing a sequence, I'm not doing the same way as when I answer set A, set B. Set A, set B, as I said previously, I would only just look at set A, set B, find the pattern, and then answer the question. And if I don't find the pattern in like the first 20 or 30 seconds, I would just do a random answer, follow my instinct, flag the questions, Control F to flag, and then just move on. And if I have time at the end, go back to the flag questions and try to take more time to find the actual pattern. But when I'm doing sequence questions, I'm using a completely different approach. And this approach that I'm using is the fact that I'm trying to find first elements of the pattern. And once I've found elements of the pattern, I'm going to try to eliminate which ones don't fit in. So here, I found that the colors always are in the same sequence, white, black, lined, or white, black, gray. So let's see which ones we can eliminate. So the first one is white, gray, black. That doesn't fit. It has to be white, black, gray. So A is already eliminated. White, black, gray, white, black, gray, white, gray, black. So again, D is also eliminated. It's not in the right order. So now it means that we're only kind of competing with just B and C. We have to find out if it's B or if it's C. At this point, if you have no time, you just guess and move on. But if you do have time and you find the pattern pretty quickly, you're able to like tell me and just answer the question and find out if it's B or if it's C. So now let's go back to the sequence and try to find out which one it is. So the first thing that I'm seeing here is that if you go back, to the questions options, you can see that both, they're all positioned in the same place. The white is in the top right corner, then there's the black at the bottom, and then there's the lined arrow in the top left. So it's not going to be relative to where the white arrow should be because they're positioned in the same place. However, you realize that this arrow here is pointing to an edge, and this arrow here is pointing to a corner. So that's already something to be like, oh, okay, this is what is different. That's something that's different between both of these question options. And let me try to find out which one it is out of these two. So if you look here, you can see that let's just follow the white arrow. That's all we're looking for. We don't care about the other two now. The white arrow in the first box is pointing towards the edge of the box, the top edge. Then it's pointing towards the top right corner. Then it's pointing towards the right edge. Then the bottom right corner. So this would let me think that the next box, this arrow, should be pointing to an edge and the bottom edge. See, because it goes top, corner, side, bottom. It should be at the edge, at the bottom edge. And you see here in the question option, that's the B, that this arrow is pointing to the bottom edge. So you for sure know that this is B and it's not C. So now you have your answer and you can just move on. And now we have again another sequence question, and usually with these sequence questions, you have to just try and find out a pattern. Usually when there's a few different, how do you call these? When there's usually a few different shapes, I usually just follow one shape first. So here, the circle starts here. Then in the next box, it moves 1 to the left. Then it moves to here. And then it moves back up. So what kind of pattern can I see here? What I'm seeing is that from here to here, it moved 1. See, it just jumped by 1. It went to the left. Then from here to here, it moved 2. 1, 2. See, it went 1, then 1, 2. So it's here. And then to go from here to here, you would need to go 1, 2, 3. So it went from 1, then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So this would let me think that the next one, this circle here, would have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and be positioned here. So now let's look at the question of the answer options and see if there's a question option with the circle in the bottom right rectangle. And if you look at the question options, you see that in question option D, there is effectively this little circle that is in the right position. So you know for sure at that point that you have to select this one because you found the pattern. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6, 7, etc. So you know that it's a D. So once you have this, you click on the answer and you move on. Now on this, again, this is another sequence question. And this one, if you look at it it's the first thing that you realize is that, that's pretty easy, is that if you count the amount of white squares, have 5, then you have 4, then you have 3, then you have 2. If you count the number of black squares, you have 2, then you have 4, then you have 6, then you have 8. So each time you move from one box to another, you decrease the amount of white squares by 1, and you increase the number of black squares by 2. So in the last box, the next box, you should only have 1 white rectangle. And so here you have 2, so you can already eliminate this one. And you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You should have 10 black rectangle squares, sorry. And if you count here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So A could be an option. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. C could also be an option. And D has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. D has 11, so D is out. So B and D are both out. And you now have to find out if it's A or if it's C. And the only differentiating factors between A and C is the fact that here, this black square is here, whereas that in B, the black square is not here and it's here. So you have to figure out, where does this black square have to go? And so if you go back to your sequence, you'll figure it out. What you're realizing in the sequence is that you remember when we said that every time there's a white square that, disappears, it goes from 5, 4, 3, 2. And actually what happens is that each time, it's not that it really disappears, you realize that it's actually one of those white squares actually becomes black. So here, this one was white, it became black. This one was white, it became black. This one was white, it became black. But you have to add 2 black squares, right? And so each time you transform like a white square into a black square, the other black square that you add has to be kind of symmetrical to it, in a sign of symmetrical or center symmetry, I'm not so sure how you call that, but symmetrical to it. So you see that this one, the other one you add is symmetrical. Then this one becomes shaded, becomes black, and you add 1 in symmetry. Then this one was white, then it becomes black, and you added in symmetry. So then the next one will be, this one will become black, and so the next one would have to be added here. And this corresponds exactly to what you're seeing here in the C. So then you have this, you move on. So this next question is again a sequence question, and I'm just going to focus first on the extremities. So you can see that we have a beaded extremities with like dots, then a zigzag, then a railway, then just a straight line. So it's beaded, zigzag, railway, line. Beaded, zigzag, railway, line. Beaded, zigzag, railway, line. Beaded, zigzag, railway, line. So it always has the same, they always stay in the same position, always in the same position. And then you realize that it moves, it's kind of like, like a safe door. and it moves. And it always moves 45 degrees anti-clockwise. So if you just focus on one of them, you see that it's this one, the beaded side is always, it starts at the top left corner, then it goes 45 degrees, then bottom left, here 45 degrees, and then another 45 degrees, and then you would expect the next one to look like this, with this one here, the beaded one, to be like this on the side, right? And so you would look at the question options and see which ones actually have that. So you would see that B, C, and D all have the beaded side that looks on the bottom right corner. However, there's a little issue with B and C. The fact that we said that the beaded zigzag railway line always stays in the same sequence. Here we have beaded zigzag railway line, and here we have beaded railway. Well, we're supposed to have zigzag, so we know for a fact that it's D. Another thing that could tell you that it's D is the fact that it goes from nothing in the middle, something in the middle, nothing in the middle, something in the middle. So you would need nothing in the middle. And then, so if you looked at this first, you would be able to eliminate C because there's something in the middle. And then you could eliminate B because it's a railway instead of a zigzag. I think I'm just also going to stop here just to give another tip, is the fact that if you have kind of a sequence that you don't know how to answer, you really just don't know what to answer, what I often did when I was doing my exam was that I would look at the question options and see which ones are the most similar. So for example, I would see that the three of them had a beaded line in the middle, on the side. So I would tell to myself, it's probably not A, because the UCAT likes to put like very similar answers. So it's probably not A because A is too dissimilar from the other three. So I would just eliminate that one. Then I would look at both of these and look at that's B, C, and D, and see that B and C are, again, very similar because there's nothing in the middle. So I would take C away, and then I would just do a guess out of these two and just choose one of them. So it means that by just looking at the question options without even looking at the sequence, I was actually already able to increase my chance of having the question correct to 1 and 2 rather than 1 and 4. And that's something that I used very, very often when I didn't know for sequence, and it worked really well because you would often get it right because it was 1 out of 2. So that's also something that I would suggest that you guys do. Okay guys, so here's where I'm going to be stopping the first part of this video. If you've enjoyed this first part and you would want to see the rest of the questions, please just stay tuned. The video will be up on Wednesday. And in the meantime, you can always watch my other videos from the Journey to Med series, where I walk you through the personal statement, what is the UCAT, what is the BMAT, the UCAT versus the BMAT, and a lot of other videos that are also on their way. If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe to my channel so I know that you enjoy my videos. And until then, I guess I'm done. Thank you for watching.